Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I'm going to be doing the fourth of my Man Booker 2016 reviews, and this one is The Sellout by Beatty. Now this one I'm not going to hold up the horror through, not because it's particularly heavy, just because of the white balance. So again, have a look at the cover if you want to, but it's going to be going away in a sec. So I think The Sellout's a really difficult one to talk about because it focuses specifically on racial matters in contemporary society, and I always feel a bit uneasy speaking about that personally because I've never had any experience of any kind of racism directed toward me, and so I feel as though I'm sort of speaking from a place with very little knowledge, and it's a topic that I can only read about others' experiences of. I can never experience it, or will never hopefully sort of experience it myself. So I'm just wary of that the whole way through. I'll do the best I can. But just given that, it may be that I'm a little bit cagey, a little bit considering stuff as I go through because I don't want to say anything that's going to upset anyone. And the book is one of those books that does kind of put you on the edge of your seat. So topic wise, we follow a character who is unnamed. His surname is Me, and he essentially decides to try and reinstate slavery in one town in the United States because he thinks that racial segregation will improve society, or his particular part of society. Really the novel focuses on sort of the idea of post-racial society, so the idea of whether or not any of the sort of impact, America mainly, but the impact of the civil rights movement has changed the way people view race, and the way that racism sort of functions, and whether or not there's actually been any measurable positive change. That's sort of the main message, I think. But the book itself is highly satirical, and I found it absolutely hilarious. It's one of those books that sort of, you're laughing and it's also terrible at the same time, if that makes sense. So there's a sort of joke that reveals an injustice almost. And I just thought it was so intelligently done. I think I actually really enjoyed it. I know I've seen a lot of people giving it sort of 3 stars. I gave it 4, and I think I would even be tempted to have a think and it might be 5. But I've only finished it quite recently and I think I needed just a little bit of time to think over it. But I really enjoyed it. It's so smart, like it's so freaking smart. I, as you know, I'm reading Infinite Jest at the moment, and there's something about it that kind of reminds me of the kind of language, and it's not the same level of complexity, I don't think, as Infinite Jest, just because Infinite Jest is bigger, and David Foster Wallace seems to have an obsession with language. But I think Paul Beatty uses language, similar kinds of language and precise language in that manner, and there was just some parts that reminded me of that, so let's try and think of an example. So he describes people who'd sit at home and sort of comment on racist either sort of blogs or videos and stuff. As an American, hikikomori, which is a term which means there's like a whole section of Japanese young men who seclude themselves from society, choosing to only interact with the world through the internet. So like, it's a really clever idea of essentially what he's saying is loner, but using a really nice specific word use that gives you a much fuller description of what that person is like and what they're doing. And I think there were just little pieces like that absolutely throughout the entire book. It's also a book that I think you'll love if you're someone who sort of thrives off references to other stuff, because it's so full, not only of sort of other bookish stuff, but sort of music, film, philosophy as well, but without being sort of pretentious, I don't think. It's just sort of bouncing off stuff, and bouncing off things on all different levels, and I found that great fun. And whilst I might not know, you know, the majority of the stuff that was mentioned in here, it was fun to be able to research and pick pieces up and learn a little bit about that as well. In terms of the plot, obviously it's a different kind of plot, so I've never read about anywhere in fiction about someone trying to reintroduce essentially slavery and separatism, and I was really uncomfortable going into this book because I didn't know what to expect and I didn't really know what to think, and I think I was really nervous, and I get that if you're sort of hearing this and thinking like, I don't know if I actually want to read about that, that sounds horrendous. I think the book's worth it, and I think it's got some really good messages in it. And I think partly that sort of shock element too, and that being on edge is what gives it value. That there was an interview, I think for Rolling Stone, that the author did, where he had a really good quote. I'm just going to fetch that for you because I really enjoyed that one. Give me just 2 secs. Do you know why I just appealed to you all to wait for me, considering I can just edit myself and there's no wait time, but whatever. It's in the Rolling Stone, and the author of the article is Darren Reedy. I'll link the full article for those who are interested down below. But he spoke to the author about sort of why he wrote the book and why he thinks it's important. And I'll read a little bit of it for you, because I think it's really good, but don't go away and read all of it, because I think the whole article is really good. Stephen Wright used to tell a joke that went something like this. You know when you're leaning back in a chair and you almost fall, but you catch yourself right before you do? I feel like that all the time. That's what it's like to be reading that book. The flinching wasn't momentary, it was constant. I finished it not knowing if I enjoyed the prose or the jokes, but certain that I liked the way the book sat on my chest, like an older sibling pinning you to the living room floor and popping upside the head repeatedly. So maybe that's it. I flinch all the time. Even when people I know well touch me, I flinch. So maybe that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to see if I could make myself flinch, or see if I could slap myself silly. And I think this book does that so well. So the book that he's referencing when he says that book is one called The Nazi and the Barber. And that was what he was trying to sort of emulate, and I felt exactly like that through the book. So you're so cautious because it's such a sensitive topic, and it's one that sounds just horrendous at face value, but he's so smart and so funny. This has been my favourite so far, and I would recommend this. I think this will do well. I hope this does well in the prize. I think it seems to be as well that sort of other critics seem to be liking it. It won the National Book Critics Circle Award for fiction, and just knowing that the Man Booker tends to be popular in those kind of crowds, I think this might do quite well. But I will do a proper shortlist predictions once I've finished all of them. But if the Sellout sounds interesting, even if it feels a little bit odd, please just go and have a read and just see what you think. I'm really glad that I did, and I sort of made myself read it even though I thought I was going to hate it. So I hope that's been helpful. As always, comment down below if you've read the book, if you like the book, if you have read it and you didn't like it, or if you want to be picking it up in the future, and we'll just have a chat about it down there. Thank you all for the support and views that you've shown on my Man Booker videos so far. I really like making them, and it's really good to know that there's an audience for it too. Because it means I get to read all the Man Bookers and talk about them for a long period of time. I just really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'll see you guys again soon in my next review video. Bye bye. I think I really believed in Eileen. While she's very unreliable and she's living this really horrid life.